When the banks shut down and cash means nothing. Gold won't feed your family or trade for what you need. History shows that when society crashes, vices become currency. There is one plant, 9 times stronger than anything sold today, that fueled revolutions, built colonies, and still has the power to calm nations or poison enemies. In a true crisis, this barter leaf is worth more than gold. But why? And what makes it the ultimate weapon in a collapsed economy? Let's put the new rules of survival to the test. A single hardware glitch at a payment processor can silence millions of cash registers in seconds. In 2018, a firewall failure at a Visa data center froze half the card transactions in the United Kingdom. Supermarkets shut their doors, queues stretched out of every ATM, and stores posted handwritten signs, "Cash only." That day, £86 million vanished from retail sales. People with full bank accounts walked out empty-handed. The same year, a software update at MasterCard wiped out chip and PIN payments across Europe. Train stations stopped selling tickets. Gas stations locked their pumps. Within hours, cash was king again, but only for those who had any. Digital money depends on invisible servers, fragile networks, and a promise that someone else will honor your balance. When those systems fail, your card is just a piece of plastic. In 2023, a telecom blackout in Australia cut off electronic funds transfer for 10 million people. 70% of retail payments failed. Supermarkets issued IOUs. Fuel stations shuttered. Even the government scrambled to impose emergency cash limits. That outage erased more than $100 million in a single day. In the United States, a Capital One network crash left 16 million customers unable to withdraw cash or swipe their debit cards. Grocery shelves emptied as panic buying set in. Withdrawal caps kicked in automatically, $100 if you were lucky. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation called it a systemic risk. The Federal Reserve warned that over-reliance on digital payments magnifies the impact of every outage. When the network goes dark, markets freeze instantly. No cash, no cards, no way to move value. People turn to whatever they can hold in their hands. The World Bank estimates that a single global IT outage, like the one triggered by CrowdStrike in 2024, can wipe out billions in economic activity overnight. In every case, the lesson is the same. Digital money is only as real as the server that says so. When that trust evaporates, the scramble begins for anything tangible, anything tradable, anything that can buy you a meal or a ride home. In that moment, the market does not care about promises. It cares about what you can actually exchange. The question is simple: what survives when the system does not? What becomes money when money itself disappears? Every collapsed economy runs on one rule. Only the most tradable goods survive. Not every item in your pantry or safe will pass the test. The market sorts through desperation with brutal efficiency, and only a handful of things ever become true money. 4 qualities decide what people will risk for, fight for, and trust when nothing else works. First, portability. If you can't carry it, you can't trade it. Grain spoils, livestock needs to eat, and even gold gets heavy when you're running. The best crisis currency fits in a pocket or a pouch, moves through crowds, and changes hands in seconds. During the hyperinflation in Zimbabwe, people abandoned bricks of cash for tiny bags of sugar or loose cigarettes because they could slip them across a table, no questions asked. Second, divisibility. If you can't break it down, you can't make change. A bar of silver is useless if no one can cut off a piece. Real barter goods must split into units small enough for daily needs, one meal, one ride, one night's shelter. In Argentina's 2001 banking crisis, coins vanished, and people traded candy, matches, even aspirin tablets, because each could be counted out and measured. Third, storability. The market punishes anything that rots, leaks, or goes stale. Potatoes and bread turn to mold. Gasoline evaporates or sours. The best currencies last for months or years, immune to weather, pests, or time. Archaeologists have found caches of dried tobacco leaves, cocoa beans, and salt bricks hidden for decades, still ready to trade. When trust collapses, shelf life is survival. Fourth, demand. Not every useful thing is valuable. Only what people crave, what soothes, relieves, or comforts, holds steady purchasing power. In every crisis, emotional relief goods stabilize exchange rates. Alcohol, coffee, and nicotine do not just distract, they calm nerves and buy loyalty. Scarcity psychology shows that when stress peaks, the market pays a premium for anything that takes the edge off. That is why in every failed state, vices trade at a markup far above their weight. These four filters, portability, divisibility, storability, and demand, form the hard edge of barter economics. Anything that fails even one is left behind, no matter how much you paid for it. The search for the perfect crisis currency begins by running every candidate through this gauntlet. Only a handful of assets ever make the cut. In the spring of 1613, a battered ledger arrived at the offices of the Virginia Company in London. Its pages, yellowed and stained from the Atlantic crossing, detailed a cargo that would rewrite the fate of the struggling Jamestown colony. Tobacco, measured out by the hogshead and recorded in pounds and shillings, became the first true export of English America. The numbers were simple, but the impact was seismic. In a single year, shipments jumped from a few hundred pounds to over 20,000. By 1630, that figure would climb to 500,000. Every barrel carried not just leaves, but the hope of survival for a settlement on the edge of collapse. Official records from the Jamestown Rediscovery Archives confirm the scale of this transformation. Ship manifests, tax rolls, and warehouse receipts show tobacco flowing out of the colony and credit flowing in. The Virginia Company used these exports to underwrite critical resupply voyages, food, tools, and even new settlers, paid for with nothing but dried leaf. In the words of one colonial treasurer, "This leaf paid for the ships. This leaf built the cities." A historian steps into frame, standing before a row of reconstructed tobacco casks. She traces a finger across the faded ink of a 1617 manifest. Every transaction, every shipment, every debt, tobacco, was the backbone of colonial finance. It replaced coin, it settled lawsuits, it paid the salaries of governors and the wages of laborers. When the colony had no gold, it had leaf. Tobacco's role as money was not theoretical. In 1618, the governor of Virginia declared it legal tender at 3 shillings per pound. By 1642, the General Assembly codified it as official currency. Taxes, fines, and even church tithes were paid in tobacco. The Anglican clergy received 16,000 pounds of leaf each year as salary. Across the Chesapeake, Maryland and North Carolina followed suit. Tobacco became the universal medium of exchange, trusted by planters, merchants, and even the crown. The market value of a barrel was set by weight and quality, with inspectors certifying each shipment before it left the docks. To solve the problem of transporting bulky leaves, Virginia introduced tobacco notes, government-issued certificates redeemable for a set amount of leaf stored in public warehouses. These notes passed hand to hand like cash, anchoring the first commodity-backed credit system in North America. The colonial ledger stands as proof. Tobacco was not just a crop, but a currency. It built the infrastructure, paid the debts, and kept the colony alive. The evidence is written in every line of those manifests and court records. In the chaos of a world without reliable money, the market always finds something it can trust. In Jamestown, that trust was measured in leaves. Nicotiana rustica stands apart from every other tobacco plant on the planet. Botanists call it a relic, a survivor from the ancient forests of the Andes, unchanged for centuries and built for potency. Its leaves are thick and almost leathery, and the plant itself rarely grows taller than 4 feet. The real difference lies inside the leaf. Laboratory assays confirm that dried Rustica leaf can contain up to 9% nicotine by weight. That is not a marketing slogan. That is a hard number, 9 times the punch of commercial cigarette tobacco. 1 ounce of cured Rustica leaf holds as much nicotine as an entire half-pound of store-bought tobacco. In a world where value is measured by density and effect, this is the definition of high-yield currency. A botanist lays the 2 species side by side. Rustica's leaves are smaller, tougher, and darker than the wide, pale leaves of Nicotiana tabacum, the kind grown for modern cigarettes. The yellow flowers of Rustica are a genetic fingerprint, marking it as a separate species and a separate class of asset. This plant did not survive by being pretty. It survived by being dangerous to anything that tried to eat it. That danger is not just theoretical. Entomologists have studied Rustica for decades, and the results are always the same. The nicotine in these leaves is a natural neurotoxin. Insects that bite into a Rustica leaf are hit with a chemical overload. The nicotine targets their nervous systems, binding to receptors and causing paralysis within minutes. This is not a slow-acting defense, it is a knockout blow. For small-scale growers, the implications are immediate. A traditional recipe, passed down through generations, calls for soaking the cured leaves in water, diluting 10 parts water to 1 part leaf, and spraying the mixture onto crops. This historical pesticide formula, sanctioned by decades of agricultural use, protects food supplies when synthetic options are gone or banned. The science is simple, but the leverage is immense. Insects cannot build resistance to nicotine the way they do to most commercial sprays. Rustica's alkaloids hit too hard, too fast. The same chemical that made it a ceremonial plant for the Aztecs now makes it a defensive asset for anyone who controls a seed bank or a patch of ground. The value is not just in the leaf, it is in the power to protect a harvest, to secure food, and to hold a monopoly over something every neighbor will eventually need. The botanist's demonstration ends with a warning. This is not a plant for casual use. Its strength is its currency, and its edge is its defense. The entomologist steps in holding a lab report, 9% nicotine confirmed. That figure is not just a statistic. It is the reason Rustica is worth more than gold when the system fails. A seasoned homesteader stands in the middle of a patchwork field. In one hand, a burlap sack packed with cured leaves. In the other, a handful of seeds so small they slip through his fingers like dust. He doesn't need rich soil or irrigation. Nicotiana rustica thrives. Where other crops fail, in rocky ground, spent earth, even the edge of a gravel drive. The plant shrugs off drought, heat, and neglect. Most years it grows like a weed, reseeding itself after the first harvest. Drop the seeds in spring, and by midsummer the leaves are thick and ready to cure. 60 days, sometimes less, from bare dirt to barter-ready leaf. A single garden bed, no bigger than a dining table, can yield enough dried leaf to fill a 5-gallon bucket. That bucket is a portable bank vault. On prepper barter forums, 1 pound of cured rustica leaf trades at a premium, 5 times the value of commercial cigarette tobacco, sometimes more. In the aftermath of a hurricane, a neighbor swapped a quart jar of rustica for 2 dozen eggs and a pound of coffee. The next county, over a handful of leaves, bought a gallon of gasoline when pumps ran dry. Efficiency is the real advantage. Rustica's short cycle and relentless regrowth mean a single planting can supply a household or a whole neighborhood year after year. Once a patch is established, it returns every season without coaxing. No fertilizer, no pesticides, just a steady return on every square foot. The homesteader grins, running gloved hands over the leaves. He isn't growing for personal use, he is building leverage. In a world where every asset is up for grabs, Rustica is the closest thing to a monopoly you can plant. Every leaf that comes off this ground is a unit of power ready to trade, store, or defend. Leather gloves are not a suggestion, they are the law of this crop. Nicotiana rustica is a chemical hazard in the field. Wet leaves leak nicotine through the skin faster than most people realize. A medical toxicologist stands in front of a tray of fresh-cut leaves, pulling on thick gloves. He lists the symptoms: nausea, cold sweats, dizziness, a pounding headache, vomiting. It is called green tobacco sickness, and it can hit within hours of bare hand contact. Hospital records from Kentucky to Brazil document farm workers collapsing after a morning in the rows, some with blood pressure so low they needed IV fluids. The culprit is dermal absorption, nicotine passing straight through the skin, especially when the leaves are damp with dew or rain. The FDA and the CDC publish guidelines: always wear gloves and long sleeves, never harvest with bare hands, and wash exposed skin immediately. The toxicologist holds up a checklist: tingling lips, muscle cramps, confusion. Any one of these means you need to stop and get medical help. This is not parsley. This is a neurotoxin. The glove rule is non-negotiable. There is another layer to the risk. In the United States, growing tobacco for personal use is legal in most states, but the moment it enters commerce, federal agencies step in. The Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, the FDA, and state authorities all regulate sale, processing, and transport. Selling or trading cured leaf without a license can bring criminal charges. Even homemade pesticides made from tobacco are in a legal gray zone. The EPA banned commercial nicotine sprays in 1994 for safety reasons. In a total collapse, the law of the jungle might take over, but until then, the rules are clear. Grow for yourself, never for sale. Consult local laws before planting and treat every leaf like a loaded weapon. The toxicologist removes his gloves, drops them in a sealed bag, and walks away. The message is simple: handle Rustica with respect or pay the price. In a world where digital assets vanish with a power cut, one plant still holds value you can touch and trade. As financial systems grow more fragile and food security grows more uncertain, the true currency is leverage over need. Rustica is not just a relic, it is a reminder that real power grows from the ground up. Stay sharp and stay prepared.